Stop, listen, and ask yourself, have you ever pondered at the idea that there may be something to the other side? If so, and you're hearing my voice for the first time, then you may have just fallen into the void. Hey there, hello there, and welcome to another exciting episode of Into the Void, where we talk about anything and everything paranormal. I'm your ghost host with the most, G-Man, and listener, do I have a great show for you. But before I get into this chilling episode, I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who is or has been listening and following us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, a big thank you to the band Blooming Fire for coming in and sharing their chilling encounters. For more on that, go back and listen to episode 10. You can hear the entire episode on Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Just search Into the Void Podcast. Lastly, if you have been following the show on our social media pages, then you may have noticed that there were no promos for any episodes for the month of July. That's because we took the entire month of July to really put focus on what type of content and episodes to put out for the listener, along with being able to attend events to help promote the show. And also, just want to bring this up, we also have Renee, our sound engineer in the studio.
Hello.
Hello, Renee. How are you?
Doing good. It's been a while.
I know. It's been an entire month. Can you believe it? That's crazy. But like I said, we took the time to really, work on stuff and get better content. And speaking of better content, Renee, I got to attend one of the greatest Halloween conventions to ever grace California.
I saw. That looked so much fun.
It was fantastic. I'm talking about Midsummer Scream. It was probably the best and only Halloween convention I've ever been to.
I got jealous when you met with the actress from Halloween Town.
Oh, Kimberly J. Brown.
I had a major crush on her when I was
You too?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought I was the only one. That's kind of cool. Oh, man, it was fantastic. I'm telling you. Now, if you're not familiar with Midsummer Scream, like I said, I can only describe it as Halloween in the summer. It's the best way, I feel, to get the Halloween season started. From Halloween booth sellers to food vendors, monsters and ghouls, sliders and mini mazes, Midsummer Scream had it all. For more on that, check out their website at midsummerscream.com. And speaking of Halloween fun, we have two guests with us today.
We do.
We do. We have Eric and Nathan from the Realm of Shadow. Eric, Nathan, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem, man. It's awesome to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was holding in a burp that whole introduction, and then it just went away.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So we're good now.
That was perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Super stoked to be here, man.
Well, gentlemen, like I said, thank you so much for being here. If you could do me a favor and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name's Eric. With Realm of Shadow, we do this home haunt maze. They've been doing it for about 10 years now. It's actually a Christian maze. It's a Christian home haunt, and the idea is his outreach. And it was started with that idea, that premise about 10 years ago. Nate, you were a part of that group.
Yeah. Our worship leader at our church decided he's a big Halloween fan.
Okay.
Me too, Eric. I mean, we're all big Halloween fans.
I love it.
Grew up being scared by our parents every time watching Scary Movie, that kind of thing. So
Thriller video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
really?
yeah, I couldn't watch that video for a while. And
I hated it. When it would come on, I would change the channel real fast.
yeah, I was definitely I was a big baby when it came to scary stuff. And then one year I told my mom, I said, I'm tired of getting made fun of for being scared. Her and my older brother would always make fun of me. And one year she sat me down and she said, okay, on Halloween, we watched Pet Sematary, we watched Halloween, we watched Freddy Krueger, we watched Poltergeist. We watched it all. And I remember she's like, okay, have fun trick-or-treating. And I'm like, oh. And to this day, I mean, besides the story I'm about to tell, probably one of the worst nightmares I've ever had.
Yeah.
But after that, I was like, I love it.
That's
and
cool.
I get the idea of being scared and having fun.
Yeah.
And now it takes a lot to get me scared now.
And Nathan, correct me, you're a pastor, correct?
Yeah, I'm actually an ordained pastor with
Okay.
Calvary Chapel.
Wow.
Not really a denomination, but people are familiar with Calvary Chapel. So, I'm a pastor at a church in Bellflower called Hosanna Christian Fellowship.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I work there. I kind of do a lot of things. I work with the young adults, kind of the 18 to 29 crowd. And then I've been part of the worship team.
Eric's raising his hand.
Yeah, that's how.
I'm the IT guy. I mean, a whole lot of stuff, but that's where I work, and
that's awesome.
That's what I do. So
that's awesome. So you said you run a Christian haunted maze.
Yes.
How does that work?
So the idea and the premise behind it is, we get a lot of flack actually from Christians as well who don't really understand. Nathan and I are not strangers to this. We were in a hardcore band.
Okay.
Doing hardcore music, and it was a Christian hardcore band.
wow,
and the
okay.
idea and the premise was...
Is it like a POD type of like hardcore?
Yeah,
or?
actually.
Oh, okay.
A little harder.
Little harder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
mosh pits, all that stuff, but it was a little heavier, a lot of breakdowns. I remember starting this band with a buddy of mine, and he played drums and was like, I need you to scream. And I was like, as long as we can do a Christian band, I'd be cool with that. He said, sure, sing whatever you want. A couple weeks into it, he ended up dropping out because of his girl or whatever. And I was like, well, okay, you know what? Lord, we tried, And the Lord actually told me, like, no, you need to keep going. I want you to do this. So we reached out to Nathan, which was the young adult pastor at the time. And we're like, hey, can you mentor us? And he's like, sure. And then I'm like, wait, you played drums in the 20s when you were young.
You invented
You
drums.
invented the drum. So you should play drums with
Yeah,
us.
Nathan just carving his own wood drumsticks.
Yeah.
No, we definitely we had a running joke that he played drums for Journey back in the day.
Yeah.
And we would tell this to this young crowd, and they're like, he played drums for Journey? I gotta tell my dad about this. And he's like in the back like, but no, he shreds. I mean, the guy's killer on drums. So then we kept it going, and we did it for like 3-4 years. Wild time.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the premise of all of that was, hey, there's a lot of people that like this music. We have something we want to share. We want to share a message without being offensive or whatever. So we're in this environment where it was real kind of like misunderstood by people. So that same vibe that Eric and I have had in that. Has kind of come to the Halloween community, right? Where the big question we always get is Christianity and Halloween. Go.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was actually going to ask you that question. Christianity and Halloween, go.
Yeah, and the idea of, for us is, I mean, there's pretty much one day out of the entire year where the entire country is let's go to strangers' doors and ask them for something. Right?
Yeah.
Well, as a Christian, one of the ways we, like to, share what we believe is we hand out what's called tracts, little gospel tracts, right?
Oh, okay.
And it's just kind of a non-offensive way to say, hey, just wanted to share this with you. Read it if you want, throw it away if you want, but we just want to share it. So our pastor at our church has always been a big proponent of interesting and out-of-the-box ways to do what we do. And so, like I said, my worship leader, being a big fan of Halloween, was like, well, I'm going to use Halloween as an opportunity to give the good candy. And when people come to the door, say, here's some candy. Hey, here's a tract,
Nice.
So that's kind of the premise. And so it just kept growing because we're like, well, if we're going to build a little thing on the front lawn, like, let's do something that's really cool because we all like being scared.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, one of my mom's favorite things to do growing up is me and my friends would be in the dark room watching, Friday the 13th. And she'd sneak in with the phone book and right in the scary spot, just slam the phone book on the table just to scare the snot out of us. That was my upbringing, right?
Can't do that. Oh,
That
man.
was my upbringing. So I really enjoy the adrenaline you get from getting scared, right? So we said, hey, let's take advantage of the opportunity. People are out trick-or-treating. Let's build a maze in the front yard, and that's kind of the premise of how it started. And we do a couple things differently that kind of set us apart, from other home haunts and stuff. Is one of the things we do is we're gore free.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're kind of like family friendly haunt. That doesn't mean it's not going to scare the snot out of you.
Right. Yeah.
But we're gore free, so we're not doing the mad scientist rooms or the doctor rooms and stuff.
Okay.
Butchers or anything.
I personally don't have an issue with people that do that, but in our maze, we're like, we stay away from gore. We also stay away from stuff that's like overtly, the way I would put it is overtly glorifying demonic or occultish things.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't mind having a demonic skull hanging on a door to set the mood in a room. But of course, we're not trying to have people walk through our thing and like, oh, hey, I want to start a Church of Satan now.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So we kind of stay away from those things. And then, was it last year we introduced a new thing in our maze at our home called a Code Green.
Yeah.
Where, like, because one of the things that kind of gets me, and it's like, I understand it, but, you'll have parents come to a scary maze, and they'll have their, like, 2-year-old with them.
Yes.
And that
I've seen
2-year-old
that.
clearly clearly does not want to go through the maze.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, parent, do we need to change anything? No, they're good, right? And that kid comes out, and that kid is never going to go through a maze again for the rest of their life.
Well, that was actually one of the things we sat through on our first Midsummer Scream was, they were talking about, look, if you scare the snot out of a kid, he's going to hate it. I was scared. I got the snot scared out of me. I hated it for a while.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same
but
here.
But if you can change it up, and now the actor's afraid of the kid, you made a haunt lover for life. You made someone who's going to love going to haunts forever. Because, you know what? I had an exciting time. I scared that monster. Because they come through, and with our code greens, it's, whoa, get him away. Get that kid away from me.
Right.
However we're playing it. But we introduced that last year, and it went, we even got reviews, and they were like, they offer a code green for the kids, and we're like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice they caught that.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It turned out to be a really good thing for the families, and so we're like, scare the adults and help the kids have a good time, And that's kind of, and then of course at the end of our maze, one of the things we do, and at Midsummer it was into the maze, but when we do the home haunt, of course we have candy there, and then we give tracks out with our candy. We're just like, hey, this is something for you. Read it if you want.
That is a smart thing to do. Yeah.
I mean, it's been successful because every year it keeps growing. Last year we took over the entire driveway, the entire front yard, all the way out to the curb. It was about 1,600 square feet.
And grown throughout the years then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just keep adding to it, and last year we were blessed with we actually had found some haunters who were quitting on Craigslist, and they ended up having a warehouse of stuff. And we drove out to Hollywood, I think it was, to pick up these like castle facades, right, that they had built. And in that conversation, found out they had this whole warehouse they wanted to unload, and so they ended up giving us a really good deal. And
that's awesome.
That's really kind of what skyrocketed our build,
And that's how like you were meant to do something like this. All of a sudden these doors are opening up for you.
It was very affirming. It was very affirming.
That's awesome.
And some other things were like, we were like, oh, well, we can only afford this amount of pieces. And then they were like, a couple days later, you know what? Take it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, all right. I guess this is a door opening. And then Midsummer Scream happens. And, I remember looking at Rick West and kind of being like, that's the dude, right? And,
yes.
And I'm like, go talk to him. And he's like, you go talk to him. You're the voice. You're the guy who goes and talks to people. And I'm like, oh, you're right. And walking up to him, and I got his email, and I don't really remember what else we talked about, to be honest. I kind of blacked out.
Yeah, me and Eric and our other partner, Ron Love, he's really the one that started it at his house.
Yeah. Okay.
We're kind of the core team, and we have a handful of other people, Will Henderson, who does our video and stuff, that are like core elements of us. But Eric is always, he's the voice guy. He's the networker. He's the, hey, go schmooze and open doors for us, right?
Nice.
And so I always, I shove him into the spotlight because I'm like, I'm content to just like, let me build the maze. You go open doors. So
so and then the door opened for that as well. So what we're seeing there's not a lot of like pushback that we're getting and growing. We got a new location this year. We moved to a different home in a backyard that is maybe twice as big as the location we had before.
Where we were at, I always thought we'd get pushback because we're faith-based, right?
Oh, okay.
That's where I always thought pushback would come from. None of that.
Oh, wow.
The community, has been more than gracious and supportive and all that.
That's really good,
which is great, yeah. Because again, it's like we understand not everybody believes what we believe,
Right.
But we appreciate the opportunity to say, but we want to tell you what we believe, and that's what we do. We want to get the gospel out, but we're okay if people are like, that's not for me, And the community has just been like really cool with it, The pushback came from the city, where last year it was the city, and I won't name the city because I don't want to put them on blast, but they were just finally got to the point where they said, you're not really a home haunt anymore, you're kind of a structure now. So you need a permit for lighting and signage and a permit for this.
Wow.
And, you're taking donations, you need a permit, and they shut us down last year, and so that's why we just prayed about it, and we had a house in Bellflower that is about double the size as where we were, and said you could use our whole backyard.
Oh, that's fantastic!
Yeah, just awesome.
That's fantastic. Now you guys were at Midsummer Scream,
yeah,
which again, if you attended Midsummer Scream, by the way, they had a mini maze, right? It's everyone there had mini mazes, or was that a full maze?
They're mini mazes for most of us. Like what we had at Midsummer Scream was half of our footprint in October.
Oh, okay.
Right. So most of the maze people there, we found out they kind of use that as these are our teasers for our October.
I've noticed. Yeah, I noticed that, which was fantastic, by the way. So let me ask you, how long did it take to plan something like that, knowing that you're going into Midsummer Scream, and the setup too? I mean, what's the process in that?
Well, it starts with a meeting.
We started in January last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The year before that, it's August, and that's to get us ready for October. And Sarah knows, my wife knows, she's like, August comes around, that's when Eric's Halloween starts. You know, we have our meeting, but we had it in January this year, and I was so excited to have it.
We got the go ahead from Request that we were invited. You know,
nice.
And I think it was about December last year, and so we met in January, started the preliminary planning, and that was more of okay, what's our theme? What are we going to do? What can we pull off? You know, because what they really did with Midsummer Scream, which I thought was awesome, is they let us set up what we wanted. So we said, hey, what's our size limitation? And their answer was, how big do you want to build it? So we got to establish really all those details on our own.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had a meeting in January, kind of decided on how big we wanted to build, really had to figure out how much are we going to bite off, can we pull this off?
Right,
Because in Midsummer, you have Thursday and Friday. You have 2 12-hour days to build your entire attraction.
Oh, man.
And then Sunday night, you have 6 hours to tear the whole thing down and get out of the convention.
And they end at, 6 or something like that?
They end at 6 o'clock on Sunday, and then they have to vacate the convention center by midnight.
Wow.
So it's like build as big as you want, but you better make sure you can build it and tear it down.
Yeah.
So it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot.
Right, yeah.
I was just going to say, it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot. Okay.
We basically sat down in January and looked at the previous October and said, what were the most successful scares? So we grabbed the 5 most successful scares in our maze and said, let's build a small maze around those. That was January. We had a few more planning meetings between then, but the actual physical building, we built the whole maze off-site and then tore it down and took it to the convention center.
Okay.
So the whole actual physical maze, just due to, we all do this on our part-time, right? This isn't a full-time job for us. The majority of the actual physical building is myself and my assistant at work. You know? And, I always tell her, I'm like, hey, you're my assistant and I need assistance. We're building a Halloween maze. She's like, well, that's not what I signed up for. But she actually loves it. It was pretty much, we got started in the beginning of June. We really kind of hit the ground running about the middle of June. And so it was about a month and a half of 6-day weeks, pulling anywhere from, 8 to 12 hours a day, building, and then, figuring out electrical, figuring out all the stuff that goes into making your scares work. And that took us literally right up to the day before we had to tear down, pack, and get to the convention.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Now, on your social media page, you guys had pictures of, I believe, the setup. Was that the practice setup over there and then taking it to Midsummer Scream?
Yeah, we had a few pics that we put on our social media from the backyard.
Backyard that was the backyard. Yeah. Okay.
Those are just kind of, like, hey, guys, we're getting ready for Midsummer, that kind of teaser stuff we were doing. And then, obviously, there was a couple pics that Ron took on site when we were building at Midsummer that he posted as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. You guys, I'm telling you, if you didn't get a chance to go to Midsummer Scream in August, next year, please, by all means, get your ticket, check them out. Hopefully, Realm of Shadow is going to be there again, so that way they can go and check out your maze, because that was just fantastic. The lighting, the sound, your actors, really well done.
Thank you.
There was one thing I did notice that some mazes were doing, and I didn't get a chance to ask if you guys were doing it too, but some mazes, like if you had a podcast show or if you had some sort of fear of, being scared or whatnot, what they would do is they would keep the actors back so that way they wouldn't scare you. They kind of just let you go through. Did you guys do that also, or was it more of just, we're going to scare you because we want to scare you kind of thing?
Well, for the most part, what we did when we were sending people through, I had people come by and I didn't have anyone ask to hey, can you hold your guys back? But more so, hey, we're going to send a film crew in, and I'd be like, okay, I'll hold the next team, and I'll let you guys go in for what it would be 2 teams worth, so they get enough pictures, video. But I wouldn't tell them to hold the scares back, and I think that actually produced some of the best walkthrough videos that I've ever seen, because you're the ladies all walking through, and she's falling to the floor, getting scared in the tunnel with the laser beams.
Yeah.
And they came out, and they're just like, that was awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think maybe that's why they were saying we were so committed. Because they were like, wow, you told them to stop and they were still scaring us. That's commitment.
We had talked ahead of time. It's like, are we gonna offer our code green at the convention? And we were ready for it. But what we found out is, the people that are going to something like Midsummer Scream, even the little kids, they were there to get scared. They were they're fans of the community. They're fans of the horror genre and all that stuff. So I had asked a handful when they were carrying their kid in their arms, and I'm like, hey, do we need to tone this down? And of course, I'm always looking at the kid because our experience at the home hunt was, that kid's like doing everything they can to get out of your arms.
Right,
So I don't know if you're paying attention.
Right, yeah.
But the kids were like, big grins on their face and wide-eyed and ready to go through. And I'm not gonna lie, I think we had a couple cries over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, but I got over it. I was fine.
So, but overall, we didn't pull back at the convention. We
Awesome.
just kind of was like, let's do what we do, and it was great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That is so awesome.
Yeah, and if you guys don't come, if we get invited, I'm pretty sure we're probably gonna...
Oh, we've already been invited to next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, all right.
Oh, yeah.
But
Awesome.
before that,
Super
even,
excited.
Even
Awesome.
around Halloween time, if people want to come check us out, we'll be probably linking something after where we're at. But we're completely free, and not a lot of home hunts do that, especially those who are there at Midsummer. That's one thing.
Yeah, that's another part of we do it as an outreach. So we're not trying to make money off of it, and so it's a completely free maze,
Cool.
and yeah.
I'm always a fan of those mazes, like home hunts, where they do ask for a little something because they're trying to make money to be able to do it again next year.
Right.
But I'm really a big fan of people that are like, hey, just come in. We want to show you something scary, or we want to, scare their pants off you or something.
Yeah.
And at the end, we have a little something for you.
We started doing that a couple years ago, like a donation. Like if you'd like to give us something, but we don't charge, we don't ask, we don't do tickets.
Okay.
And ironically, that was one of the things that set the city over the edge last year.
Yeah.
We're like, no, we're not charging. It's donation based, and like you're still business, and, But we open that up because that is the reality of it. I mean, pretty much 100% of the cost of building this thing comes out of our pockets.
Right. Yeah.
It's a labor of love. It's
Yeah.
it's a we love doing it.
Yeah.
But
I think one of the best things is having a kid come in, get the snot scared out of him, and coming back with 6 of his friends. Like,
Right?
yeah.
oh yeah, I know this scare.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you still scare him with something else that he wasn't ready for.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
probably the best. 'Cause
It
then
works out great.
And especially for what we're trying to do, 6 other people now just got a track. So
Yeah.
it's accomplishing our mission.
Yeah.
What we're doing, and we're having fun doing it. I love scaring. I can be in there. I actually didn't get to scare this Midsummer Scream. I was in the front line, doing like the talking and stuff. But,
Okay.
He was the door guy, kind of setting the story.
Okay.
Because we try and have narratives, with our
Right.
stuff, and
that's cool.
kind of set a vibe. And so he was the tour guide at the front.
Hey, you did a good job, though.
Yeah.
Seriously, that was
Yeah.
fantastic the way you did it.
Oh, appreciate
Well
it.
done.
Yeah, I usually, I'm a giant clown or something.
Giant
looming,
something.
Okay.
I can be giant in. Yeah, it's kind of my thing. I'm kind of the giant.
So, obviously, you guys, we brought you on because, Midsummer Scream and your maze, but we also brought you on because you guys both had sent me some very interesting, creepy stories. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to get to those stories, and we'll start with Eric,
Yeah.
and then after Eric, we'll go next to Nathan. So, Eric, first off, Renee, you got to read the story.
I got to read the stories.
What did you think? Just
They
real
were-
quickly.
Yeah, I think because we were talking about it earlier, and you were talking about your story that you could have gone longer, and I was like, and I was reading it, and I was like, there felt like there could have been more, but it was still really good.
Yeah.
And then Eric's story was really interesting too, just like how everything, kind of like how you came into that world of it. So
I know you guys. There's a lot to say on these stories, so we'll go with Eric, and we'll kind of just break it down, to where you can let us know about the story and everything, and then then we'll just move on to Nathan after that.
Sure, absolutely.
We should set the mood here.
Yeah, let's
Get the ambiance music going. And now, Eric presents his ghost story.
Yeah, so appreciate that.
That's the best transition I've ever heard in my life, right there.
Can I get you to do a ringtone for me or something? No, yeah. So I actually was. I'm a Christian now. I was baptized Catholic as a baby, and my family, we really didn't attend church. We really didn't feel, I guess my parents didn't really feel the need for it. We were a Christmas and Easter family, you know what I mean? We'd go on those days.
Yeah.
Over the years, we continued that. We didn't go, and probably around 9 years old, we lost probably about 7 or 8 people in my family, and it just was rough, including my grandma, which was horrible, right? For me, it was the biggest thing. I've never felt such, heartbreak. And my dad actually would see his older brother, and he wasn't as hurt. He didn't feel that hurt. He didn't look like he was wounded. And my dad asked him, "What do you have that I don't?" And he was like, "I got the Lord." And that triggered my dad going to church. Went to Hosanna, where Nate goes, and I was being dragged to church every Sunday, and I hated it for the most part. And then around junior high, eighth grade year, I started understanding, and it started to click with me, and I'm like, okay. But I had questions, tons of questions. And come freshman year, I finished my freshman year. At this point, I have a relationship with the Lord to the best of my ability. But my family tells me we're moving, and we're going to move to, it's called Quail Valley. It's right between Temecula and Lake Elsinore.
Okay. It's funny. You mentioned that in the story, and I wasn't sure. And then, okay, now I know you're at. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So right there in Riverside, and, the houses were cheap. This is before the crash of the market. And so we moved out there, and right before we did, we decided to get baptized. My brother and I, we thought it'd be great. As a new believer, when you're a Christian, it's a declaration. You're saying, "Hey, world, I believe in Jesus," and I'm declaring that. Well, in the Bible, when Jesus gets baptized, he's 40 days, 40 nights, temptation. The devil tries to tempt him. There's just a significance to when you're baptized. There's going to be trial and tribulation that follow. And I really kind of feel like that's what happened, because when we moved to this house, we were looking for a home church, couldn't find a home church, and kind of stopped going to church. About a year in, weird things started to happen, and the first thing we had happen was with my little brother. My little brother was 3 at the time, 3 or 4, and he's upstairs playing in his room, and he believed that my mom was actually upstairs in her room, and my mom was downstairs watching TV in the living room. My older brother and I were out doing high school stuff, probably getting in trouble, I don't know. My dad was at work because he was commuting back over here every day.
Oh, wow.
So we rarely, he was out all the time. So it was just my mom and my little brother. And my little brother tells this story to this day just like this. And it's crazy to me because he was so young. But he heard my mom in the room. And he said, "I heard her leave the room and head towards the stairs and to go down." Now, my little brother didn't like being up in that house, like upstairs by himself or downstairs by himself. It's a big house, it was a big house. As soon as he went, he heard something go towards the staircase, he went out. He's like, "Wait, Mom, like I want to go out with you. I don't want to be up there." He turns to the staircase and he sees a floating head, some sort of man's floating head, and he says, the man's floating head. I don't know what it is. And when he's staring at it, he freezes. And he said the head just shoots towards him, like full speed. And a little kid, he just screams bloody murder. And my mom comes running from the living room to the bottom of the staircase. And she turns on the light and she's like, "What's going on?" Hispanic mom, she just yells,
Yeah.
"What's going on?" And my little brother is just crying and crying. He's like, "Why would you run past and leave me up here?" She's like, "I'll leave you up here." She goes, "I've been down here." And then he tells her about the man's face. So I get home, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And my mom pulls me in the kitchen. She's like, "So your brother saw something?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, he saw a head fly at him and thought I was upstairs, heard my voice, heard me, and I was downstairs the whole time. And I'm like, I got the chills. I got a little weary, but joked around about it, crawled on the floor, scared her a few times, acted like the house was haunted. Oh, I regretted that because a month later, I'm actually asleep, and I have this dream, and it's to this day. I've told Sarah, I've told all anyone who wants to hear it. There is this road And it's like, imagine you're in the desert, and there's this road. And I see everything in sepia tone in this stream for some reason. Like that filter, that color, I just remember it being in that color. And as I approach the road, I look down, and there's this little goblin-like creature, almost like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. And he's just sitting there looking at the road. And I remember it turning to me, and I'm looking down at it. Like, I get chills from, like, the face I see. And I also, I don't know if you've seen the Twilight Zone movie.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
It's on the wing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the old TV show version of
The
it.
movie version of it, right?
John Lithgow.
Yeah.
That looked exactly like that little goblin.
Wow.
Right? So, and I'm like, right? And it points, and it does the old King Kong little girl from Jack Black's King Kong.
Right.
When she goes, Kss, that point. She does that one exact point down the road.
Oh, man.
And I look down the road. I don't see anything. But I look back at this creature, and it kind of gallops and takes off and jumps down the road where it pointed.
And remind me again, where was the road that you were on?
It's like in some desert. There was literally nothing else around but this road. And it gallops down and jumps towards the road and flies like a bullet. At this point in the dream, it becomes I take vision from the goblin or the creature. Like, I'm seeing through its eyes, and I see these two little creepy hands reaching out down the road, flying down the road. And it's just two little hands going like that, shaking. As it approaches down the road, I actually see the back of my mom's minivan. And I recognize it. I'm like, oh, that's my mom's minivan. And it goes towards the back of the minivan, transparent almost through the back, on the driver's side, where the seat belts are, and comes up on the left side of the driver from behind. Now, this is what really got me was, as soon as it approached the driver's side, it turns, and I remember seeing my mom's face turn and scream bloody murder. Like, I've never heard my mom scream, pure terror, frightened, and I woke up immediately. And when I woke up, I couldn't move. I had sleep paralysis. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. And I physically felt hands on my back. Now, I felt these hands pushing me down to where, like, I've done MMA and jiu-jitsu, and I felt someone holding you down. This was making the breath leave my body. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, oh, I'm gonna die. And I remember reading in the Bible, the disciples used to cast out demons in the name of Jesus Christ. And it had been a year since I've been at church, so I probably didn't do this correctly, but I remember as soon as I could speak, the first thing I said was, in the name of Jesus Christ, get the F off me. That's definitely incorrect.
Yeah.
But I feel the pressure relieve off my back.
Okay.
And I catch my breath, and I look around the room, and I actually see this dark shadow in this corner, like the top corner of the room. And I remember feeling like there's something else in here with me. There's nothing that casts a darker shadow in that corner. The other corners don't have that dark of a shadow. It didn't feel right, so I said it again, and casted it out. And I kind of closed my eyes when I did it. When I opened it, it wasn't as dark. It was normal for what it was. My parents ran in the room and asked what was going on. The creepy part is, it was around that hour, like 3 a.m.
No, witching hour.
The witching hour. It was around that hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember that because I used to watch paranormal shows, and they always go out on the witching hour.
Right, yeah.
And I woke up and I remember the time, and I was like, yo, that's kind of creepy that it was during that time. So that was another thing.
What are the odds, though, that it would be 3 o'clock when that happens,
Right.
Yeah.
And so that freaked me out. We prayed about it, my family, and we were like, my parents were like, we should probably start going back to church. And we did, and we ended up moving back. The whole housing situation messed us up, but we moved back, and I'm back at Hosanna, and
the interesting thing, real quick, because we're going to get to your story real quick, Nathan, because I will put this in my final thoughts, but I just want to mention this, is the sleep paralysis that you had while you had this dream of this goblin creature. There is a rumor that is going around that supposedly the sleep paralysis is a demon or a demonic entity that is trying to basically make its way into you. Not a possession of some sort, but like mentally messing with you in your dreams. I'll get back to that in a minute.
Sure.
But it's just because when you mentioned that, I actually looked something up on my phone real quick, and I found a picture that people are depicting as sleep paralysis of like a creature sitting on someone and not being able to move. Yeah. And they're saying that these pictures that people are making seem to be the most accurate pictures of what it possibly could be that is messing with you. So, but we'll get back to that real quick.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and as Christians, we don't believe in ghosts. We believe in demons.
Right.
That's one thing that we believe that demons could probably mess with someone to a point where they think they're seeing maybe a ghost.
Right.
But we believe it's a demon. And one thing as a Christian is when you're following and when you believe in Jesus Christ, it says that you can't be possessed. But in that time, I had just been baptized, so here comes the pain, right? Here comes the temptation and the trials, tribulations. But also, I hadn't been going for a year. I like to think of, Christianity as a relationship where if you're at a point where the devil is scared of you, he's going to bring some fiery arrows.
Right, yeah.
Like if he feels like he's already got you, like, oh, that guy doesn't go to church. He's going to leave you alone.
Right.
He's probably not going to mess with you.
It's one of those like why mess with someone that isn't attempting to go to service or anything like that when you don't need to touch it. It's the ones that are going and the ones that are proclaiming Jesus Christ as their Savior. Those are the ones that I feel are attacking you because they're like, no, you need to do this. You need
This is a threat to my evil kingdom.
Right.
Here. So I felt like I was, and this is what the Lord says not to be, is lukewarm, right? We were not going to church. So now there's this battle that's happening, and I felt like I maybe was in the middle of that, and I potentially could be, and that's why some stuff like that was happening, and
wild. Just wild.
That's my take on it, and that's why I was saying, it could have been something trying to get into me, absolutely, because I was in that place of lukewarmness where that battle was happening. So
Well, what I find interesting about your story is that I experience sleep paralysis occasionally, once in a while, not often, but for me, you describe it like the same way how I am with religion and stuff like that. That's how I am right now. I'm very lukewarm and stuff like that. Because recently, a couple of years ago, my mother passed away from cirrhosis of the liver and stuff like that. So that's why with my beliefs, I'm kind of like iffy. But I did experience sleep paralysis actually, like I think a year ago. And it was the exact same thing where it was just I couldn't move. And there was some sort of disfigured body or something like that. But it was like coming from like the head of the wall that my head was facing. And it was just kind of like putting its head near my head. But I didn't feel threatened. Sure. It felt like it just wanted me to know it's there.
Right.
And that was it. And then like as soon as I kind of like figured out what was happening, then I kind of felt like something let me go. And I was able to get out from that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you bring up sleep paralysis actually because like I remember... Oh gosh, this was years ago. I mean, back in the Army and even after the Army too. Yeah. In the Army, I remember being in my barracks and I remember just sleeping, or just relaxing actually, and I fell asleep. And I thought it was maybe because I sleep on my stomach, and I think I just eaten like a bunch of food too. So I thought maybe that was the real reason. But a lot of the guys had mentioned that our barracks had a lot of deaths that had happened. You have soldiers that have unfortunately, committed suicide. God rest their soul. It's just crazy to think that happened, and then all of a sudden I'm in my room and I'm laying down, and it feels like someone is just pushing on your back. And I remember just like it felt like my eyes were closed, but I was aware that I was in my bed, and the whole time I'm trying to yell, help, 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 but all you get is this like noise of like air just coming out, and it's so uncomfortable. And the second time would be at Rio Hondo. Everyone talks about this green room that's haunted up in the theater. And I remember I think I just ditched a class, and I decided to go and take a nap up in the green room. And I'm laying on this couch that they usually use for plays and stuff, so it's all broken and everything. But I found a blanket, and I just wrapped myself in it and fell asleep. But I remember sleeping, and all of a sudden I'm hearing a ruffling noise like within the green room. And then next thing I know, I have that feeling again. It's like someone or something is just pushing down on me and is not allowing me to get up, to the point where at the time my wife, when we were dating, she was downstairs, and I remember just trying to call for her over and over and over, and nothing was coming out. I mean, it is a very creepy experience to have, especially when you don't have control.
Yeah.
You know, that's the part I think that scares everybody the most, is that you don't have control of what's going on. Right. That's. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
No, yeah.
You know, but it sounds like it was more of an eye opener. You know, so
yeah, for my parents as well, for myself. I think it was one of the cool things though was that I did remember, because out of the pigs, was it Baal? They cast Legion out of the pigs in the Bible. Or out of someone into the pigs.
Into the pigs. I remember reading about that, yeah.
And they did it in the name of Jesus Christ. And I was so young in Christianity at the time that, for me, I was like, I'm surprised I remembered that. But it stuck with me. And that was the first thing that came to my mind was, something's pushing on my back in the name of Jesus Christ. And then I did it incorrectly because I was also super young. So I said the F word because I was super scared. But... yeah, it was. You know, I'm glad I went there, and you know, it was an eye opener, absolutely, and changed me forever. And I haven't had an experience since like that, so it's a scary situation. I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Well, I'm just glad that you're okay, though.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And you're here today, and you're able to share this story with us, which we really appreciate.
Yeah,
so thank you.
I'm totally fine. I didn't.
As he's holding up 9 fingers.
Yeah, you podcast listeners, I held up 9 fingers. Right?
Yes, 9 fingers, folks. 9 fingers. Nathan.
Yes.
So, you have a ghost story for us.
Yeah.
Let's set the mood.
On a hill far away. Okay. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Dang.
Well done.
Nah, I mean, a little background. Like, I didn't grow up in Christian home and any of that stuff. So, growing up through junior high and high school, I didn't believe in supernatural anything, right? I didn't believe that there was ghosts, demons, there's no God, there's no devil, there's nothing, right? And I just, was kind of, had adopted the humanistic philosophy of you live, you die, and then you're done. So I never believed in any of that stuff at all, despite the scary movies and all that, despite the, mom scaring and, Halloween, it was just a fun time to dress up and be scared, Long story short, I ended up becoming a Christian when I was 21 and again, started reading and studying and stuff. And then that kind of opened up my mind again to the reality of the spiritual realm, the supernatural, paranormal, whatever title you give to it, right? But that there's God and there's a devil and there's angels and demons and this stuff in a world around us we can't see, right? And so in studying and learning that stuff and going, I believe in this, I believe in that. There was a few instances that happened leading up to me becoming a Christian, and the things that have happened, after. But I, had different times of hearing. You would call it a disembodied voice, right?
Right.
And just one quick one. It was before I was a Christian. I was, bad point in my life and doing all kinds of horrible stuff and kind of living a reckless life and kind of was like, didn't care if I hurt myself. Kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm in a car once. I'm driving recklessly. My friends are like, slow down, and I'm like, nah, I'm cool. I'm
living
speeding,
life in the fast lane. And
And long story short, I end up losing control of my car at 85 miles an hour on the freeway. The car spins around backwards. I'm facing the traffic now that's coming towards me.
Oh boy.
Sliding across the freeway, and I remember holding the steering wheel and going, we're gonna die. Like, sorry dudes, we're gonna die. And heard a voice, just clear as day. It was a male voice, and it said, you're gonna be okay. That was it. After I heard the voice, all of the anxiety and the fear and all of that, something bad's about to happen, just replaced with complete peace. Wow. All right. Wow. About a second later, literally all hell breaks loose because boom, we hit the side of the freeway. The car, the front of the car, the hood flew off, the engine block cracked, the back of the car, the gas tank was ripped open, flipping around, and we end up, doing another 180 and coming to rest on the shoulder right as the traffic comes by us.
Wow.
Not a single one of us in the car had a scratch.
Wow.
That was my first supernatural experience, right? Where I was like, well, that's weird, I had a few other instances like that, you know, before I became a Christian. And so when I became a Christian, I was like, let me look into that stuff.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
The big story, and the big story I sent you, and this is kind of the most tangible, scariest thing that's ever happened to me dealing with supernatural, you know, in the spiritual realm. I was dating this girl at the time, and unfortunately, earlier in her life, she had been a victim of sexual assault.
Yeah.
And there was she always wore long sleeves, right? And she was not very touchy-feely, right? I'm like, oh, let's hold hands and stuff. She's like, you know. So I thought, okay, she's just, you know, being guarded and stuff, cool. But I asked her once, I'm like, hey, how come you never want to, like, you know, hold hands or, you know, this and that? And why are you always wearing long sleeves? It's like 1,000 degrees outside right now. Well, she told me that in this assault, the perpetrator, or one of the perpetrators, had carved his initials in her forearm.
Wow.
And so she pulled up her sleeve and she showed me she had this Band-Aid on. That was the other thing. I was like, why you always got this Band-Aid on your arm? Like, is whatever that is ever going to heal? Then I find out it's covering these initials. And I was like, oh, now I feel like a jerk, you know.
And they were scarred. They were like scarred.
I never saw it.
Oh, okay.
I never saw it. It was always covered up, but that's what she told me it was, right? Wow. So over the course of our dating relationship, and of course, we're both Christians at this time. We're going to church and stuff and all that. And so she lives at home with her mom. I'm still at home with my parents. And one of the things she would always tell me about is she'd always have these nightmares, you know, about demons chasing her. I've had nightmares of demons chasing me. I've had nightmares where I woke up like shaking in terror, going, in Jesus' name, right? Because what was happening in the dream. And so she would share this dream with me, but in this dream she would always tell me it was the same demon chasing her. And no description, more of just a indistinct, dark, you know, eyes kind of, you know, nebulous thing chasing her. But she'd always have these nightmares, and so we'd regularly talk and pray and whatnot. Well, one night, I get this call from her, and it's late at the night, you know, and I remember looking at the phone, and I was just like, you know, she doesn't call this late. So I pick up the phone, and she's frantic. She's sobbing. You could barely understand her, right? And there's that moment which I've heard parents describe, like when their kid's in the other room and their kid hurts himself, there's a difference between something's really wrong cry and then they're just kind of, you know, want attention cry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There was that moment where the fear in her voice, I could tell something's really upset, something's wrong. So I was like, she's like, you need to come over, and I'm like, I don't want your parents to get mad, you know.
Yeah.
She's like, no, really. And I'm just like, something's wrong, I'm heading over there. So I head over to her house, and I go to the front door, and she's like waiting at the front door for me. And of course, front door opens, she just like, you know, hugs me, and she's quivering in fear, and I'm like, what happened, you know? And you know, it's taken time to get her to just be able to talk through the crying and the sobbing and the quivering. And so I finally get her to start telling me what's going on. And so she starts to relate the story to me. And as she's relating the story to me, she's kind of walking me back towards her room, right? And I could tell that the light was on in her bedroom, you know, just her bedroom was right off from the front door. So she starts telling me she was in her room earlier. She was, I forget if she was reading a book or something, you know, but she had her desk lamp on next to her, and she was doing whatever she was doing, and she dozed off. And so she dozed off with the lights on in the room. Now, one of the details of this story is in her bedroom, she had those little glow-in-the-dark stars. You know, those little glow-in-the-dark planets that people do?
Yeah, I had those as a kid.
And they were like, they lined every wall of the room, all four walls. They weren't on the ceiling, but right where the wall meets the ceiling. So she kind of made this little border of glow-in-the-dark stars, right? Just some little decorative thing she did.
I had the same thing.
Yeah. So anyway, she starts telling me, I was reading or whatever, I forget that detail, but she goes, I dozed off, and I started having the dream about the demon chasing me. And I was like, okay. And of course we had dealt with this, you know, like this wasn't a new thing. So I was kind of confused as to why are you this terrified right now? So she's like, I'm having the dream. He's chasing me, you know, chase. I can't get away. Finally get to the point where I turn and go, she's like, I scream like, who are you? What do you want? You know? And in her dream, this entity looms up over her and just says, I'm the demon of MR.
Oh, man.
Okay. The initials that were carved into her arm were MR, right? So the demon says this, I'm the demon of MR. And then the light bulb in her lamp either popped, exploded, or just burnt out, but it made that zap sound, right?
Yeah.
So it woke her up, right? You know, I don't know if you wake up 1 second before your alarm goes off, right?
Oh,
so
yes.
she woke up like 1 second, you know, lights on in her room, boom, the lamp explodes. And then she looks up, and as she's telling me the story, by this point we're standing at the threshold to her room, but she won't go inside, right? Like, and she's still all terrified. So she goes, the lamp exploded, I woke up, and she goes, and I saw this. And she reaches into the door and she flips the light off, her bedroom light. And what I see above her bed, literally right above her bed, is every single one of those glow-in-the-dark stars was no longer around the room. It was above her bed, spelling out the letters M-R.
Is it so they just moved from where they were to the ceiling?
To the ceiling above her bed.
Okay.
And so she flips the light off, and I'm looking at this, and now I'm having that moment of, holy cow! Like, this is legit. This is for real. Like, I'm staring at it, right? I'm not hearing a story about it. You know, I'm staring at those letters on her ceiling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm like, oh, I need to be strong right now, but I want to run home. You know, I'm like, this is scary. You know,
How old were you at this time?
I think I was 26.
Oh, okay.
26. But yeah, it was scary because I'd seen those stars just earlier that day, right? So I'm standing there, and she's just like crying, right? And she flips the light off. You could see it. She just loses it, and she's just like clinging to me, and I'm like, let's turn the light back on.
Right, yeah.
And then she's like, I don't want to turn the light on. I don't want to see what's in there. And I'm like, if anything's in there, we'll see it if the light's on, right? And of course, I'm just like, I'm scared.
Pushing for the lights. Keep pushing for the lights.
Yeah, I've never heard someone be scared and want the lights on.
Yeah, right.
Shut them off.
Yeah,
It's in there.
she was just like, you know, close her eyes, terrified. So we flipped the lights on. You know, of course, nothing's in the room. You know, and I'm not like, I didn't have that feeling like something's here. I have that feeling like something happened here, right? And it was just this really weird sense. And of course, I'm like, all right, well, let's pray. Of course, we're praying, you know, if there's anything here, you know, in Jesus' name, be gone, all that stuff. But then I'm like, well, I got to get those letters off that ceiling because she ain't going to go back in her room.
Right, yeah.
Now, those letters, I don't know if you've ever seen them. They have that little sticky goop on the back.
Oh, yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So they're pretty strong adhesive. So I climb up on her bed, and I stand up, and I reach up to the ceiling to, like, grab the first, gosh, I don't know, 20 or 30 of these stars, and they're just all clumped in these big letter MR. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to yank them off the ceiling. Well, I reach up, as my finger touches the first star, like, just as I start to touch it, it just falls off the ceiling.
Ooh.
Like, it's not stuck to anything.
Yeah.
It's just there. And then, you know, and that kind of surprised me a little bit. So I reach up again, and I just kind of start to wipe, and they just, like, wipe off the ceiling. Like, they're not stuck in place. The adhesive was not doing its job. So I wipe all these letters off. Of course, they just all fall down, and, you know, and after that, I don't remember, you know, I picked up all the stars. I'm like, I'm going to throw these away or something because it's just creeping me out.
Yeah.
And that was that experience, you know. We ended up later, you know, obviously, you know, we ended up breaking up at some point and stuff. And I don't know exactly, you know, where she's at or how she's doing now, but I don't know if she ever got over, you know, what happened and stuff. But yeah, that instance happened, and that was the most tangible, scary, weird thing that I've ever experienced.
Do you still remain in contact with this person?
No, I don't,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was that, you know.
Wow.
You know, but I've, you know, as far as supernatural things happening, you know, I mean, I've personally been healed, you know, like I had was supposed to have cancer and went into the doctor, and long story short, you know, doctor's like, there's nothing there.
Wow.
And like 2 weeks earlier in the pre-op, there's like, oh yeah, here it is, and da-da-da. And what do you mean it's not there? And it's just gone. There's no scar tissue. It's just gone, you know. I've experienced that, which, I mean, for me, that's supernatural. That's the power of God working.
Absolutely.
You know?
No,
So
I was just going to say, my mother actually, she was dealing with cancer.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, like, she goes to church every Sunday with her parents or, you know, by herself or whoever wants to go. As kids, we were dragged to go to church also.
Yeah.
And when she announced to me, I think it was actually the day or 2 days after Halloween that she had cancer. Like, she wanted to tell me within that week, but she knows that I love Halloween and she didn't want to ruin it for me, which personally I would have been like, just tell me, because I don't want to, you know.
Right.
But she did tell me afterwards, and then, you know, she did the whole chemo, go through everything, and she did, you know, hair loss and all that.
Yeah.
Personally, I think she looks better with short hair. That's just me, though.
Awesome.
But yeah, and then and I remember she was, oh gosh, I want to say social media or talking with some friends. I think I overheard it or saw it, and she said, yeah, it's gone. Everything's gone.
That's awesome to hear.
And it's one of those, like, I go to church with my wife. I try to go every Sunday. Sometimes it's just like, I got to get stuff done to where I really should just go. It's one of those, like, we go, and when that was being told about the cancer, I remember just praying and praying that this would go away, and talked to my mother, and she was saying, quite possibly this could be something that God is testing me on, just to see where am I, with my faith and with my understanding, which I don't like the fact that it's cancer that is giving you a test, but at the same time, what bigger way to put a test on someone than to, discover that they have cancer? So, yeah, that's a scary thing. It really is.
It is, but it was one of those times where I got to experience, something outside of this world that I'm in tangibly, physically, affecting my physical, tangible life in a way that it's like, even the doctor couldn't explain. I remember asking the surgeon, I was like, well, he's like, yeah, I can't explain it. He's totally baffled. And I'm like, well, let me tell you what I believe it is. And I told him, and he's like, oh, no, that's all hogwash. And I'm like, well, that's fair. You can believe that. I said, but, people are praying for me. And this is the thing that got me. He goes, no. He goes, if anything, I made a mistake. I'm like, whoa, bro, you just gave me a malpractice suit card rather than admit, that maybe there's a God that healed. I was blown away.
It's funny how doctors, and like 90% of doctors are that way. They're just like, no, it's
he just
more
wouldn't
belief of science and medicine than something supernatural to happen.
It's funny how he's just willing to kind of just like
almost brush it off.
Yeah, it's just like say he would rather have it as a mistake. Than to believe it was something.
And that's what got me. He was willing to admit that he made a mistake rather than to say something supernatural, something I can't explain happened. Right. And I'm like,
personally, I would have rather you tell me it was something in relation to supernatural than telling me you made a mistake. Because first off, you're a doctor,
right?
And. I was like, I know everyone makes mistakes, but come on,
this is
pal.
Cancer.
This is cancer. You can't really make mistakes here on this.
So,
My
goodness. That's a couple of things. I mean, I've had a number of other things go on and experience personally, hearing what I believe is God speaking and stuff. But
I feel like, you don't really hear about, because you hear paranormal, you automatically think something, scary.
Spooky,
something spooky. But there's definitely things that happen paranormal wise. I mean, there's a story Nate tells as well. It's, he had a Bible that was given to him as a gift. I mean...
Oh yeah, one of these you talk about coincidences, right? In I don't necessarily believe in coincidences, I believe that but I got a Bible when I was a kid. I went to church camp in junior high, lost the Bible, right? Now I'm 21 years old. My brother's going to that same church. He ends up going to that same church camp. And, of course, my brother's praying for me, God, my brother's life really sucks right now. And help him out, right? And I'm just whatever. Well, there's like 2,000 kids at this church camp. Right. And so one day my brother is bored. He's inside the main meeting hall. He's going through the lost and found. Right. Now, I don't know if you know anything about lost and found, but stuff don't sit in lost and found for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. It gets donated eventually. And then they refill the box. So my brother's going through this box just because he's bored. And he's opening all these Bibles and looking at that front page. Right. Presented to.
Okay.
And he opens up his Bible and he sees this presented to Nathan, 1984. My brother's like, and it had my last name in there. And he's like, that's my brother. So he comes home and hands me this Bible, and at the time I was just on that cusp of, believing and stuff. And so he hands me this Bible. And one of the things that led me to, there is something beyond us, it was the fact that out of 2,000 kids, my brother was the one who found that book that happened to sit there for 10 years.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And just stuff like that. And it's like, that's supernatural. That's beyond you,
There are a lot of stories out there about things that have been around for a long time, but don't make themselves known until I want to say the right person comes along, or the right energy shows up. There's lots of stories on that, from like emblems to rings to T-shirts, books. I mean, just random things that you wouldn't consider to be supernatural. And then all of a sudden, this person, like your brother, is like, he found this book and it's for you. Like, this was meant for you. You were supposed to get this book. There's a lot of stories about that. It's insane. And like you said, you don't believe in coincidences, and I really don't either, because I feel like everything happens for a reason. With my incidents of the supernatural, and when I got attacked, to your sleep paralysis, the nightmares that you had, even to meeting her, and all of a sudden now you're engaged in this I want to say possible demonic type of entity in the house, or what
Yeah.
she's going through is now you two were supposed to be there at that time. So
Right.
definitely everything, happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure, because I was going through this. I had him send me his story, and I sent them both to you, and I was going through them. And speaking of that, it's just, I'm realizing that kind of the similarities in the story is the dream
Yes.
and the wake up to the scream.
I'm so glad you bring that up too, because that's something I noticed.
Right? And
yeah.
I picked that up, and I said, wow, if this was, if this is how a demon maybe presents itself, maybe it's through dreams. Maybe this is like some sort of something here.
Yeah.
And that's what I picked up. And I remember I told him last night, actually. I said, oh, you pumped to go? He's like, we're pumped. We're talking about it. And then I'm like, there is a coincidence there. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's something,
That is a very big possibility. Yes, absolutely. And those are the type of things when it comes to the paranormal that you don't leave out.
Sure.
Those things you definitely, when someone says, oh, that's a coincidence, it's like, yes, it is. And we have to look further into that because it, like you said, the dream and a dream.
Yeah.
It's just, what are the odds of that happening,
Right.
First of all, thank you very much for sharing those stories.
No problem.
Those I wish I could look at people's faces when they hear this story. But also, if you guys want to read this story, you can also check out our website. Their stories will be up on the website. Real quickly, because we are running out of time, I do want to do a thing that I always do towards the end of the show. It's called my final thoughts. I like to include Renee or whoever else is with us at the time. Renee, do you have any final thoughts on this before we end the episode?
No, it was just all really great. I loved it. Your guys' story was very, very relatable to experiences that I've had too. Your story was very, very eerie as well too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
really good at the same time.
He told me that story years ago, probably when we first, because he's been my mentor. He's been my young adult pastor, but we're best friends now, and he was in my wedding, and so we have like this weird like brother/mentor relationship. He told me that years ago.
Yeah.
And it's all, someone says paranormal, I'm like, that story.
Right? Yes.
That story.
Yeah.
You want to know paranormal.
You always see those memes on like Facebook or social media like paranormal what? Like that's just absolutely.
So as soon as I wrote and I was like, I got this story, but my friend has this story.
Yeah.
And so
Let me just put my final thoughts here. My final thoughts is for Eric. You mentioned a lot about sleep paralysis, and I actually have a picture on my phone. Give me a second.
is this going to give me more
And we're back.
nightmares?
No, it's just that you know what it is these pictures that I have found online are pictures of depictions of people's perception of sleep paralysis. And there's a lot of rumor that goes around saying that sleep paralysis are actually demons trying to make their way either into your soul or into your life or into your dreams. And one of the pictures, which I will post up on Twitter, is a picture of a demon on top of a person. And now you said that it felt like it was pushing on your back, and there are people who have felt it on their chest. There are people who even feel it just on their legs, as if like they're been paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah.
And the talk amongst the paranormal community is that these sleep paralysis, in a scientific term, sleep paralysis is a temporary inability to move or speak while falling asleep or upon waking up.
Yeah.
And it's most commonly found with people with narcolepsy or sleep apnea. Yeah. And just out of curiosity, do you happen to have any of those?
I have
I
extremely bad sleep apnea.
Yeah,
Okay. No, that's
sleep
fine.
apnea
That's
too.
perfectly fine because
Actually, sometimes I wake up and my wife's choking me out like that, but she's like, oh.
I know the feeling. I'm married. I get it.
I'm like, not today, Sarah. You're not going to get me.
You're not taking the car.
No, honestly, she could just fire hose pinch my sleep apnea machine.
Done
work.
deal right there.
Oh, I had to get one of those actually after the Army.
Yeah, no, I
I
do
have
have sleep
one of those.
apnea, so that could definitely.
It does
make
play a
sense.
big factor.
At that point, I had it.
Scientific wise, it plays a big factor
Sure.
in the whole demonic thing.
Sure.
But at the same time, there are a lot of incidences where people don't have sleep apnea, and it happens to them.
Yeah.
And then you kind of start looking into, so what is it that this person has done to cause this? Sometimes they don't have to do anything.
Sure.
Sometimes a demonic entity will just find you and attach itself to you like that. So, I mean, there's a possibility. There is a very high possibility because you hadn't gone to church in quite a while,
Sure.
or avoiding it, if anything, maybe even avoiding it, to the point where you allowed yourself to be opened to some sort of demonic attachment.
Yeah.
Now, your faith obviously is very strong.
Sure.
And upon reading oh gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the website, but upon reading last night, there was a couple stories where people said that their faith was so strong they felt like that entity was pushing and just couldn't break down the wall. So that's a possibility too. Now, your dream state though, what demonic entities like to do is they like to get into your subconscious. And that's usually where it starts. It usually starts with a dream of some sort, waking up, freaking out. Like for some soldiers, it's night terrors, but that's, PTSD related. This is more demonic related to where there's a thing, I don't know if it's really true or not, but there's a thing where like they will stick their finger in your ear. And as the finger goes down into your ear, it touches your brain. And what it does is it's literally transferring everything possibly evil or twisted or sadistic that it could think of to transfer to you to get you to freak out and then start allowing yourself to open up even more. It'll question your faith. It'll question your reality. But I mean, like I said, your faith obviously is very strong. So it didn't allow this, whatever it was, to penetrate and take over.
Yeah. Because I got big ears too. So that would have been, it's not even a finger. You could do a whole hand. But yeah, no, I definitely hear what you're saying. And I can see that being a possibility. I actually never put it into perspective of it being the sleep apnea thing.
Yeah,
that was
me
the first
too.
thing I
That's
ever heard.
news to me, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it does make sense because my sleep apnea is really severe, and I hadn't been diagnosed at that time.
Yeah.
I actually got diagnosed probably a couple years ago, and yeah, it's severe. Like the doctor says, like, oh, severe is your breath stopping 30 times in 1 hour. Mine stops 116 times in 1 hour.
That's a severe case. Yeah.
The doctor's like, you should be dead. And I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah. I actually took that test too, and like they hooked me up with all this like wires and stuff, and then I was laying down, which is impossible to sleep with wires hooked to your head.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, "Well, you move around a lot, you talk a lot in your sleep," and I'm like, "It's because I had wires on my head, dude. Like, how do you sleep with wires on your head?" But
the doctor's like, you don't move enough.
Right.
You're at my oxygen level was at 60 the entire night.
Oh wow.
I mean, that's,
It should be above 90.
Wow.
she's
really?
a nurse.
Okay.
So we got a nurse in the building, everyone. Shout out to St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, how's it going?
Long Beach, St. Mary's, Dignity Health.
Big shout out to St. Mary's.
Yeah, no, but we got to, so if you guys need any medical questions, she can answer them on hand.
She's like, what?
That's why I look back. I was like, it should be.
Even medical questions.
Yeah,
Demon medical
questions.
So Nathan,
Yeah.
the thing on your story, I tried very hard to find as much information as possible just to kind of find something in relation to what happened to you.
Yeah.
There are lots of stories of pastors who have come across something demonic, something evil, supernatural, and that has increased their faith or their practice even more.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get that from your story of what happened, but the fact that, again, if you go back and read on the website your full story from when you started all the way to becoming a pastor and then dealing with that.
Yeah.
I have to say, and I think we just titled it MR because it was very mysterious to see that. But I also feel like we should have titled it as a test of your faith because, like you said, you had gone through a lot of things. You were kind of going through living the fast lane.
Yeah.
You had the accident, and then all of a sudden now you're baptized and becoming a pastor. So I feel like what had happened is on your journey there was a test. And that test was what had happened, the MR test, basically.
Yeah.
We should just title it the MR test.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wish on my notes here I literally have Nathan, question mark. Because I have no idea.
No,
I honestly don't.
I'm right with you on that. I mean, before I became a Christian, I had a buddy who was always sharing with me and stuff. And this was my comeback. This was how I shut him down all the time. I said, I've never seen anything supernatural. The second I see anything supernatural, sign me up, give me a gun, I'm on the team, right?
Yeah.
So the number of things that happened before I got saved that I couldn't explain, I believe is God going, okay, I'm going to let you see some stuff. I'm going to let you experience some things to prove the truth of my word, to prove the truth of what I talk about. And this experience definitely was one of those. I wasn't a pastor at the time, but I was serving in ministry, I think, as a youth leader with different things.
So the practice had started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, but that experience was one of those experiences that made, I hate to say it this way, but brought to life the stuff that I read and study in the Word of God.
Okay.
The reality that, there are demons out there, right? And it's one thing to go, there's demons, and it's something entirely different to see something tangibly happen in front of you that's like, okay, we can't explain that, things don't work that way, the supernatural. And that instance was for me a faith building moment, because it was affirming the truth of the reality of there is a God out there, and there is a devil and the demons, and guess what, that also means there's angels, and it means all the other stuff.
Definitely,
and so it was a building point in my faith, and so it was definitely that.
I'm telling you guys, these, if you guys get a chance, please read these stories. They are fascinating. They are creepy. They will give you the chills. You guys, Eric, Nathan, thank you. Crossing
No worries,
here.
man.
Thank you so much, you guys, for coming on this show and sharing your stories. Also, thank you so much for allowing us to know more about Realm of Shadow and your maze that you guys have going on. Real quick, do you have any announcements about your maze or anything for Halloween?
Yeah, I didn't bring any of it with me, right? But want to let everybody know our website. We do have a website for our maze, Realm of Shadow. It's www.realmofshadow.com. And there on that website is the address for the maze coming up in October. We are going to be open to the public Saturday and Sunday prior to Halloween.
Oh, nice.
And then Halloween night.
Oh,
Halloween
okay.
night this year's on Thursday, so we'll be
Awesome.
open 3 nights this year.
Cool.
It's free. I'm just invite everybody to come through, and and we always tell everybody, review us, let us know. Like, we're on CalHaunts as far as a community. There's another site where you can actually go and kind of review the maze, because like our thing is, more people that come through the maze, more people we get to connect with.
Nice.
And so we want as many to
That's
come through as
good.
possible
Yeah.
and get the word out. So yeah, realmofshadow.com, and there's the address and maps and all that stuff. And
Awesome.
Tell us you heard us on Into the Void, and we'll get you in for free.
there you go.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
It's a
Yeah.
free maze.
I was gonna say,
Now, wait a minute. Hold on. All right. Well, that about does it here for the episode. I want to, again, thank you so much for my special guests, Nathan and Eric from Realm of Shadow, for joining me today. Also, if you would like to know more information on Realm of Shadow, like Nathan had said, be sure to check out their website at www.realmofshadow.com. That's www.realmofshadow.com. If you're a fan of this episode or even the show, please be sure to follow us on all our social media pages. Instagram at Void Podcast 18, Facebook at Pod Paranormal 87, and Twitter at Nightwing Silver. Also, go ahead and check out the website at intothevoid.godaddysite.com. That's intothevoid.godaddysite.com. It's there you'll be able to see in-studio pics, events that the show will be at, and our ghostly blogs. That's right. In fact, the 2 stories you heard on this episode will be up on our website as of right now. Like right now, if I snap my finger, it's already there.
It's there.
That's
Oh,
magic,
wow.
right? And with that, once again, I am G-Man, and I would like to thank you for falling with me into the void. We'll catch you later.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.